Dit is Marianah Lourens met Kuns en Vermaak, art and entertainment with Marianah Lourens. And today we don't have that much entertainment as such because it's not the performing arts that I'm focusing on. I am here at GFI Art Gallery and I've met the most interesting person here. His name is Anton Welz. Now I said Anton and he said, does it matter? And I said, it does matter actually if it's your name, whether people spell it correctly, but it actually doesn't matter because you are called Anton.
Yeah.
And you're from Cape Town?
Yes, I am.
Anton, he does the difference between fakes and forgeries. I don't know how he does it. He's going to tell us. Anton, this must be such an interesting, because your talk this morning was titled Fakes and Forgeries.
Yes. We talked very briefly about the art world in general, how fakes and forgeries, or how prevalent fakes and forgeries are. And I started off talking about Elmer de Hory, who was a Hungarian who started faking Picasso and Modigliani and Matisse in the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And made a career out of it until he was finally exposed and was going to be extradited to France. He was living in Spain. They were going to extradite him to France in 1976, and he was going to stand trial. And he overdosed on sleeping pills and committed suicide because he couldn't face his trial in France. And he's probably the most prolific and well-known forger. He faked work that was sold literally across the world. He sold work in Europe. He sold in South America. He sold in America. On his way to Australia, he stopped in South Africa, and he sold in Johannesburg and in Cape Town. Went to Australia for a year, carried on there, and then went back to Spain where he finally ended his career. But that was the first part of it. And then I talked about two furniture dealers in Paris. One was the mentor to one of the others. The protege went to an exhibition. He saw two folding benches. He didn't like them. He knew that there's a cabinet maker in Paris who aged furniture by painting it with melted licorice. So he licked the bench and it tasted like licorice. He then wrote to Versailles and he said, "You have bought something that's probably not right." They went back to Bill Pellon, the dealer who they bought it from, who happened to be the lecturer who taught Charles Herman, who was exposed to fraud at the Sorbonne. And it turned out that Pellon, the dealer, had been faking furniture since 2009. But the point I'm trying to make here is that some of these pieces of furniture were sold to Sotheby's in Paris, to Versailles. So the furniture expert in the auction house as well as the expert in Versailles, both of them were taken in by the fake. It doesn't matter how much you think you know, but you can always be deceived.
Yes, and the whole thing is with furniture, when it becomes antiques, it becomes pieces of art.
Yes.
And you want to buy the real thing. A lot of us like the antique look, and we've bought lots of old stuff, but it hasn't been that old in our country. I mean, if it's 100 years old here, it's old because that's my grandmother's wardrobe. Yep. But the fact is, whether it's a wardrobe, whether it is a bench, whether it is a painting, if you don't know, it's fake. Because now here, what you said was so interesting with the licorice.
Yes. How
on earth do you know to lick something? And if it tastes like licorice or something. So the moral of the story is, if you want to make it look old, don't paint it with licorice. No. because they'll taste you out.
Yeah, no, but I think also with that story, it was particularly because Versailles were trying to buy back a lot of the furniture from Marie Antoinette and recreate the look that was in Versailles in the late 80s. So they wanted to buy back what had been sold off, and they were looking for the real thing, but they were being conned into buying fakes. That's the truth of it. So.
And how did they find out in the end?
Pellon admitted that he had a cabinet maker who was making the furniture, and then the whole story became exposed.
So there was more than one person involved.
Yeah, very much so.
So interesting. And now with these paintings, because you just showed me this painting,
yes,
that looks exactly the same as the original that you showed me on your computer screen. How do you know? Because you said the signature was in the center and it wasn't supposed to be.
When that was in Alexis Prelo, when the work first arrived at auction in England, there was no signature. When it reappeared at another auction house, all of a sudden there was a signature in the middle of the work. So somewhere between the first and the second time, somebody had decided it was worth adding a signature. And I mean, I can go and talk about the paintings that we've had at Stephan Welz Co, which have turned out to be wrong, or which have had an interesting story. So we had a PNF on a sale probably 4 years ago, quite a big watercolor. It's an antique. It didn't sell. It went back to the owner 2 years later, 2 versions of exactly the same painting turn up at the same day at 2 different auction houses in Johannesburg. Neither one knew that the other one had a PNF come in. One phoned the other and he said, "You won't believe it, I've got exactly the same painting, exactly the same subject." So that work we know has been faked twice, because the original came back to us for auction and we sold it towards the end of last year. So we know that work has
And just for interest's sake, how much did that one sell? The original
one, I think, did 600,000.
Yeah, well, PNF, I mean, he's a beloved painter and unique. These things do look different.
So when we talk about PNF, one of the ways, or one of the things to look out for when you look for PNF, is he would always put a full stop at the end of his signature and a dot above the I. He didn't always put a full stop after each of his initials. Some of the later works, it's just JH and PNF with a full stop, but most of the works are J.H.PNF full stop with a dot above the I.
Okay, you actually have to know to look out for those things.
If a really good faker creates a work that's very similar in style, and it's impossible for everyone to know everything. So somebody who's really familiar with PNF might not be familiar with Van Gogh, for argument's sake. So people specialize in particular artists and really know their works. Somebody who really knows Peter Clark will identify fake more so than somebody else. We had Robert Hodgins on our last sale in Johannesburg, and I didn't know that he bought his stretchers and canvases from Winston's, and apparently if the mark of the maker isn't on the back of the stretcher or the canvas, it's 9 times out of 10 not going to be right. And then there were telltale signs in the way that he makes the copyright C on the back of his canvas. That was then told to us by people who really knew Hodgins, and that's information that you only get from people who know the artist intimately and understand his style and the way that he worked.
And if you know that the actual canvas is unique, the producer of that canvas that he's going to paint on, that's actually unique.
Yes.
That's something people don't think about.
No.
They think, it's just canvas.
Yeah.
But this is a specific kind of canvas, like a material bought from here or from there.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why Elmer de Hory, when he started faking work in the 40s, was able to do it, because he went to the same art supply stores that were supplying. Think about it, Picasso was still alive, so was Matisse. He went to the same stores that were supplying. He bought the same paper, the same ink, the same charcoal, and he could create a drawing. It was exactly right for the time. You wouldn't be able to do it today, but at the time, it was easy.
Because it was so unique.
Yes.
Because the providers and the factories who make those canvases were so known by artists.
Yes.
As you say, for a forger, a good forger would actually find out all of that. And, of course, in the end, the signature, then you'd have to get a signature expert in. If the dots are at the right place, will a signature expert be able to see the difference? I'm sure they do, because there's always one little thing.
Yeah, probably. But I think, now science has taken over quite a lot in terms of how one discovers whether something is fake or not. And Gerard de Camper at the University of Pretoria has done an enormous amount of work in looking for and discovering and uncovering fakes, and where works are being faked and who's faking them. And they also now do it scientifically. So they have an infrared camera that will photograph a work. They have an XRF scanner. They can analyze the paint. And so if, for argument's sake, an artist worked in titanium white and they've got a magnesium white, they know that the composition of the paint is wrong. So it can't be by that painter, because it's not the material that he would have used. So science is beginning to take the place of a visual opinion. Yes. And you can't argue with the science.
Of course, now we're speaking specifically paintings here. We've spoken about pieces of furniture made. But what's interesting to me too is that you can tell apart the fake Rolex and the kind of watches that we have now grown up with, that you can't just buy names like Givenchy and this, for handbags and stuff like that. You can actually tell the difference as well.
So we, in our Captain office, Kate, who's our vintage fashion specialist, has learned quite a lot about how to tell a fake Louis Vuitton from the real thing. And she's pretty good at having learned the difference between the two. Watches, it's really Rolex are the ones that you need to watch out for. But again, we'll consult somebody and open the back of the watch and send the pictures and get an opinion. So we had a watch that came in earlier this year, but again, a strange story, bought probably in the mid-70s. But when we sent it in for a service, Rolex came back and said, it's a watch made up of Rolex parts. So it's a counterfeit watch, but it was bought in the mid-70s. It's not a new watch.
You can say the parts were probably
The parts were genuine Rolex.
but it belonged to several Rolexes.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's exactly.
So you've got the 7 Rolexes rolled into one, almost.
And it has a lot less value, obviously.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it would be a clever way to get it sold as
a Rolex.
genuine when it's fake.
Yes. So you'll open the back and you'll see all the Rolex marks.
Yes.
But you won't, as a layman, know that
What
it's...
to look for. And the whole thing is, isn't there also a serial number or something?
Yeah, there is.
When they made those very unique.
In my experience, the Rolex numbers are between the lugs on the sides of the case. And if you enter that serial number, it tells you the year of manufacture of that watch. And that was one of the things. The year of manufacture on this watch was sort of mid-60s, but it was only bought in the mid-70s. So the dates didn't tie up.
And of course, the container is very valuable for one of those watches.
Yes, the original service guarantee warranty papers and the box, particularly when it comes to Rolex, add value.
Yes, I've even seen it on some TV shows with handbags and the unique fashion items that if it's genuine, then definitely it is worth thousands of dollars and pounds. But of course, if it's a fake, not everybody knows it's a fake. No. So that's kind of hard. And if they've got the container, the box or whatever, the bag that it came in, then it helps.
But now you can also...
Of course, you can fake that.
But you can go online apparently and you can buy a box for your Rolex.
Yes.
So you've now got a box that...
Things have become so deceptive,
yes.
Haven't they?
Yes.
What I want to ask you, Stephan, and Anton, Stephan is your uncle.
Yes.
Is your uncle in Cape Town?
No, Stephan died probably, I think he died in 2016 now. I think it was quite a long time ago.
So you basically took over from him?
No, he had sold the business already in 2006.
Oh, okay. So how did you get back into Welz & Company?
I started with him in 1986 in Johannesburg.
So you were there?
And then left in 88 and did a whole lot of other things and came back in 2009.
Okay, so what other things did you go and do?
I had a cash converters franchise at one stage, and I worked for a really interesting business based in Kroonstad in a completely different industry for 14 odd years. So it was we were a buying group in the domestic appliance and consumer electronics business. So it was a completely unrelated industry. Yes,
yeah. I mean, you didn't have to evaluate the old thing.
And there were no fakes. You don't get a fake washing machine. So
no, and you just wanted to sell them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And growing up, because we all had to get real jobs and so on. Our parents all told us, like me, I was always into the arts, but I still had to get a real job.
I started working at my first auction when I think I was in high school. Stephan had started working at what was then Sotheby's, I think in the very early 70s. They had a stamp sale, if I remember, in Cape Town. And my brother and I, we were still at school and they needed people to help when they came to the viewing and show people stamps and do whatever. So we started doing that.
So that was actually what kindled your interest.
My grandfather was a painter and my grandmother was a collector. So there was always a little bit of that, I think, in the family. And then I did history of art at Michaelis for a bit. And my brother went on to become a lawyer. So we didn't have any other interest in the art side of things. And then, as I said, that after Johannesburg and when I got into the buying group, that was a proper job. So we did that for a while and then came back into this, and it's become a proper job. It sort of post-COVID, I think from April, May 2020, when everybody went into lockdown, every single auction house went online. All of us. So now there's a sale on every week from
yes, because
one
that was
auction
my
house to
next
another.
question to you is, how do they find you? Because you're going back to Cape Town. We are here in Dubai, here in PE Herberge. How do people contact you if they want something evaluated? Because they can give you a photo or whatever.
Probably the best thing is to go to the website, which is www.swelco, swelco.co.za.
Say that again,
www.swelco.
Swelco. And then you're there.
And then you're on the website. Or you can send us an email to ct@swelco.co.za. They'll direct that mail to the responsible department. So if it's art, it'll end up with Adam, or if it's decorative arts, it'll end up with Ainsley. So one of our specialists will
one of you will be there. Somebody will be able to help them.
Yes.
Because it's quite an important thing if you know that this watch or this whatever that your uncle had or was given to you by your grandpa and you don't know how much it's worth.
Yeah. And there are a couple of rules. Age does not equal value. It's the golden thread. Age does not always equal value. Just because something is old doesn't mean it has value anymore, because fashions change, and as fashions change, so the demand and the prices change. And that's, I think, what's quite hard for people often is they've had something that their granny said to them, this is very valuable, watch out, be careful, don't break this. And now it's a Royal Dalton plate that might have had value 20 years ago, but today doesn't have any value anymore.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
And that is, of course, your job to point that out and to make people appreciate the fact, and also just a bit of knowledge.
Yes.
Glean a bit of knowledge. So thank you so much, Anton. That was really, really interesting. I was mostly intrigued when I saw that GFI has this talk and that people could bring their watches and stuff to you.
And we saw some today.
You did that today.
Yeah.
And the fakes and forgery thing. So thank you so much. And just want to say again, the website is www.swelco, SWELCO, and the email is ct@swelco.
That's it.
And it's SWELCO. So it's easy. And if they can't remember that, then they can contact me on my Facebook profile. But I am on Facebook. I'm a granny, so I'm not on TikTok and all these things. But thank you so much. I really know that people are going to be intrigued by this.
It's been a pleasure. It's nice to be in Port Elizabeth, even though it's cold.
Oh, in Kaberga.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe when we really become Kaberga, we become warmer again. I don't know. But a lot of people still say PE. Be blessed as you go. And time for me, Marianah Lourens, and Art and Entertainment to say goodbye. Ja, Marianah Lourens, wat nou groet met Kuns en Vermaak en sê arrivari.